Sorry about that, folks. We're having some audio difficulties. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us here on Indivisible. I'm your host, John Stubbins, and we're thrilled to have you with us today, America. This is the show where we put God first, faith, family, and country, and we will always tell you the truth. We're streaming live today on patriottv.live, Pure Social TV, pill.net, the Foxhole app, Spreely.com, Freedom First Network, .com, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please subscribe to all the platforms, including Stubbins.org, and make sure that you click the notifications bell so that you get notified when we have a show. And also help us with donations and sponsorships as we continue our investigations through everything that we're working on. I also want to include IndivisibleEvents.com. Shout out to Sean and Philip for helping us put that together. Again, that's IndivisibleEvents.com. Go to that site. That's where we're doing our road show out in San Diego and Las Vegas next month. Also, defendingtherepublic.org, fairandtransparentelections.com, and frankspeech.com are the sites that we support. And thank you to our sponsor, MyPillow and Mike Lindell, and also patriottv.live, where you can get hats, mugs, t-shirts, everything you want on Indivisible. Shout out to Dave Bray for doing our music, and obviously Pete Messmer for putting our videos together. Okay, now, in case you don't know, America, we have a two-tier justice system. And you saw what the Obama administration did with candidate Donald Trump, Carter Page, General Flynn, Roger Stone, et cetera, et cetera. You saw it last summer and into this year with BLM, Antifa, no prosecutions, no cash bail, no accountability whatsoever for over 250 days of riots, arson, murder, looting. It just goes on and on and on. And in all of these Democrat-run cities, crime has run amok. The percentages are off the charts now. And we're dating this back to the 70s today. Still no accountability for the things, for the thugs that blew up federal buildings, murdered police officers, all the way dating back to then. And we're going to talk about that today. If this continues, America, we will never recover. Never. You, the citizens, must demand accountability. And if you don't think that this affects you, you need to wake up from your slumber, because it does. And you need to get involved. Today, on this show, we honor Larry Grathwohl. We honor Sergeant Jim Pera. We honor Sergeant Brian McDonnell. We honor Ryan O'Hara, Green Beret, and every murdered, fallen, set up by these thugs, every fallen hero that's fallen victim to evil by the Weather Underground, 1,000 Currents, Obama's buddies that blew up federal buildings and murdered those that protect us. We're going to talk about the Park Station bombing today, and we're going to talk about the scum that's responsible. Bernadette Doran, Bill Ayers, Susan Rosenberg, 1,000 Currents, Chase Bowden, San Francisco district attorney, so-called, Obama, Clinton, Saul Alinsky, Hugo Chavez, again, Bill Ayers, Jeff Jones, co-author, Obama's, he's the co-author of Obama's stimulus package, Jeff Jones is. Also, Celia Sojourn, the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, BLM, Kamala Harris, Biden now. We're going to talk about all of this. And as we dive into this today, keep in mind that Mark Levin has a new book coming out called American Marxism. I suggest you order that now. Jim Simpson was on last week talking about his new book, Who Was Karl Marx? Trevor Loudon, who's going to be on the show here in just a minute. His documentaries. He documents this over and over and over again, just like that we do on this show. So whether it's Trevor's documentaries, this show, those two books, and many others like it. You need to get yourself educated, America, and find out what this Marxism movement is all about. So, without further ado, I want to bring onto the show my friend Trevor Loudon. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on, John. Good to see you.
Sorry about the opening. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't play my show opening today. Something went odd. Who knows? Maybe I'm being attacked by the hammer system.
Why would anybody want to attack you, John?
Right? Yeah. I'm such a nice guy, right? I mean, why?
Yeah.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. I'm looking forward to the show today and catching up with Jimmy and Lindsay, etc. So it's good.
Yeah, and look, before we bring Jimmy and Lindsay on, I just wanted you to maybe give our audience, those who aren't familiar with Weather Underground, Thousand Currents, BLA, all these different offshoot groups, Black Panther Party, BLM, Antifa, their ties. If you could just give our audience kind of a brief history so that they can kind of get up to speed before we go into some of this background.
Yeah, well, the Weather Underground came out of SDS, the Students for a Democratic Society. That was the 100,000 strong organization that started up on college campuses all over America, mainly to fight against the Vietnam War. It was full of communists. They didn't want to end the war. They wanted the communists to win the war in Vietnam. That was their goal. And they split into several factions. You know, some wanted to be more moderate. Some wanted to emphasize the working class. Some wanted to emphasize race. Now, the Weather Underground came out of one of these factions. These were the extreme of the extreme. And they actually formed in like 1969. They went underground. They set up these networks all over America, backed by the Cubans, with actual Cuban support. And they started a reign of terror. They were bombing buildings. They were attacking. They had a plan at one stage to bomb a serviceman's dance in New Jersey that probably would have killed a couple of hundred people. But the bomb went off when the bomb makers were making it, and killed 3 of the bomb makers. But it would have killed servicemen had they not been killed themselves. So they were murderous. They were working for the Cubans. They worshipped communist China. They worshipped Ho Chi Minh. And they have spawned a whole range of organizations still working today. And the people, part of them, like Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dawn are the reason we had Barack Obama. Chaser Boudin is the reason, the DA in San Francisco who's destroying that town, refusing to enforce law, comes from the Weather Underground. Black Lives Matter owes a lot to the Weather Underground. So we're still seeing the impacts of this terrorist organization today. It got shut down in the 80s by the FBI, but nobody was really ever held to account for their crimes. And they just kept on doing new stuff. And today, they still have a big influence in this country. They've done huge damage to this country. A small organization of a few dozen people has done massive damage to this country even till today.
Yeah, they really have. And for those who don't know or haven't seen it, Trevor and I have done several deep dives on these organizations connected to the CCP, the BLA, Antifa, BLM, all of these groups, offshoot groups, even back to Acorn. Remember, I don't know if you remember last year, Trevor, we were talking about how, Acorn has evolved into something new. And that's what they do, right? They get shut down as one group and then they become something else. But it's really the same group.
Yeah, like in Texas now, you have Texas Organizing Project that used to be called Acorn, and that's winning elections all over Texas. But Acorn itself came out of the revolutionary movement of the 1960s and 70s. So we've got to understand, what did we have last year? We had riots on our streets. We had an election stolen. We had a pandemic spread from China. So China spread a pandemic in this country. Then Chinese-backed radicals, Black Lives Matter, burnt our cities, and then they helped to steal the election. And these radical groups on the streets are following the same masters and the same techniques, and even some of the same personnel that were involved in the Weather Underground back in the 70s and early 80s. So it's just a new burst of the revolutionary activity that we saw back then.
Right.
I interviewed a man, Carl Davidson, who wasn't he was a leader of SDS. He didn't go into the Weather Underground faction. He went into another faction, but he's now close to many Weather Underground people. And many of them have joined into the Democratic Socialists of America together, for instance. And I said, Carl, you were there in 1968. There were riots all over Europe, riots all over America. Can you ever see that happening again? And he said, absolutely. It's just around the corner. And this was 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
And he said, because we've had 40, it's going to be even better because we've had 40 years to teach the kids in the colleges about Marxism. And that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing the fruits of the 60s revolutionaries burning cities in America today.
Yeah. And look, you're absolutely right. And it came home because all those years of indoctrination, and now it's bled down to our kindergarten level, high school level, college. I mean, it was one thing just with college campuses. Now it's infiltrated everything, all the way into our military. It's just, we've got to stop it.
I'll tell you one thing there. Bernardine Dawn, one of the leading Weather Underground terrorists, served on the board of a group called the Erickson Institute in Chicago. That's set up by the mother of Valerie Jarrett, Obama's advisor. They have partnered with Communist China to bring Communist Chinese propaganda into preschools all across America. And Bernardine Dawn served on their board, and Bill Ayers' father, Bernardine's husband, his father, Tom Ayers, also helped to set up this group. So this is a Weather Underground linked group indoctrinating 3- and 4-year-olds in Chinese propaganda all over this country right now.
Yeah. And not to mention the connection to Thousand Currents with Susan Rosenberg, who the money has funneled through over at Thousand Currents. Just fantastic. I want to bring on to the show now Jimmy Pera. Jimmy Pera is the son of Jim Pera, who was the first officer on the scene when Sergeant McDonnell was murdered, and also Lindsay Grathwohl. She's the daughter of Larry Grathwohl, and her father Larry infiltrated the Weather Underground, and the only person to do it. So I want to welcome them both onto the show. How you doing, Lindsay? How you doing, Jimmy?
Good. Doing good. Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Thrilled to have you on the show. And Lindsay, I'm going to let you lead off, my friend. Go for it.
Well, where do you want me to start? Should I start with the bombing at Park Station?
Let's start with Park Station. And look, I want to just tell the audience right off the bat, and this is actually added a couple days, but at least 18,745 days since the Park Station bombing, and Bernardine Dawn and Bill Ayers are still free. They're still free. That should make you very angry, America. They are free walking around in the United States. That is a disgrace. And Lindsay, I'll tell you, with Jesse Bowden as the San Francisco DA, Bill and Bernardine will never pay for what they did at Park Station. Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, I totally agree. I think now that Chesa Boudin is District Attorney of San Francisco, I don't think we'll ever see anybody brought up on charges for the Park Station bombing, unfortunately. There was a task force that was created when my father was still alive, where it was FBI agents and also San Francisco police officers were involved. They had evidence that they had pulled from a Pine Street bomb factory where the Weathermen made bombs in San Francisco. And they had evidence such as fingerprints and other things that they were pulling off of latex gloves and stuff. But that was pretty much shut down during the Obama administration. And now that Chesa Boudin is district attorney, I would assume that all that evidence is either gone or been lost or destroyed or whatever. That's just my own thoughts on it. But
conveniently misplaced, right, Lindsay?
Right. Well, and it makes sense because the two people that raised Chesa Boudin are Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn, because Chase's parents were put in prison for murder because they killed during a robbery in the 80s. They killed Brink's armored car security guards and a police officer, I believe, in New York. And so Chesa Boudin's father is still in prison that I'm aware of in New York, but his mother, Kathy Boudin, his biological mother, is out. She's been out for a while now. And from what I've heard, she's a teacher. I believe she teaches at Columbia. I could be wrong. Trevor said yes. So yeah, she's a teacher at Columbia. But yeah, I mean, Chesa Boudin, he's a product of the Weather Underground. And what we're seeing here in San Francisco right now, I mean, it just proves it. When Chesa Boudin was running for district attorney here in San Francisco, I was like screaming at the top of my lungs, everyone wake up, this is not good. And people were like, oh, well, he's probably not as radical as his parents. And I was like, you have no idea this spent time in Venezuela with Hugo Chavez. So yeah, I think he's pretty radical. And I think the policies and everything that we're seeing happening in San Francisco proves what his intentions are. But as far as the Park Police Station bombing goes, go back, I think it was 1970 that it happened. There was a bomb that was placed on the window ledge of the Park Police Station. My father was told, and my father testified under oath, so this is all, testimony that can be dug up, under oath with the Senate subcommittee, that Bill Ayers told him that Bernadine not only planned the bombing, but she took part in making the bomb and then actually executing the whole mission, where she actually placed the bomb on the window ledge. And that bomb ended up killing Sergeant McDonnell. I believe he lived for like 2 or 3 days with a fence staple that went through his eye and into his brain. And then he passed away. Of course, they don't take, they won't admit to doing that because someone died, and there's no statute of limitations on murder. So they don't, Bill Ayers and Bernie are like, we've never done that. They don't even know what we're talking about. But my dad did say that Bill Ayers told him during a criticism session that it was pretty bad, that the leader of the Weather Underground not only had to plan and make the bomb, but also execute it, because they were, basically being criticized because their little cells, their terror cells, weren't doing enough at the time. And so Bill Ayers used that as an example to, let everyone know that it's bad when the leader has to go do that. So, I mean, that's under oath. Now, Bill and Bernadine have never testified under oath, to my knowledge. That was something that my father, when he was alive, really wanted to see happen.
Sure.
Get them under oath, which we'll never see that. We'll never see that. They'll die. And I mean, it's sad, but I think Sergeant McDonnell will never be any justice for his death or for his family.
Jimmy?
How you doing, John?
Good to see you, brother.
Trevor, Lindsay, it's good to be here. My father, Jim, and his partner, Bob Fife, were the first two on the scene. They were on Haight Street. It was raining that night, and they got a distress call, I believe, by a police special by the name of Serge White. They called a distress across the city and called for 7 ambulances. So my dad and Bob went down Haight, took a left on Standing and right up into Kezar Drive, right up into the driveway at Park Station, and saw 7 of their buddies laying on the ground. Brian McDonnell took the brunt of the blast, as Lindsay said. He took 17 barbed wire staples to the face, head, neck, and brain, where he lost his eye. From that point forward, the prime suspect in the bombing was Bernadine Dorn. The Police Association of San Francisco has stated that they support that and they know that, and it's to be true because Larry, Lindsay's father, told me myself, Lindsay and my father numerous times, to include a 3-hour debriefing pretty much at a restaurant for 3 hours, told us the details of Bill Ayers in Buffalo being angry about the foot soldiers not doing their jobs and the cell leaders around the country having to carry out the bombings, planning the bombings, constructing the bombs, and placing them in whatever they were going to be, whether they were planning to blow up the Detroit Police Association or they were going to bomb the Santa Barbara National Guard Armory or Park Station. Bernadine Dorn was a cell leader in San Francisco. Bernadine Dorn built that bomb at a house on Pine Street, and Bernadine Dorn was driven there. She placed it at 10:46 p.m. The bomb went off, and it killed Brian McDonnell. From that point forward, the Weatherman Underground also had a joint op, and they were allied with the Black Liberation Army. When the Brinks armored car robbery happened in 1981, David Gilbert and Kathy Bodine, who are the parents, the biological parents of Chase Bodine, the district attorney of San Francisco, when they killed 2 Nyack, New York police officers and a Brinks armored car guard, they were sentenced to prison for murder, rightfully so, with the Black Liberation Army members that were there. He was sent to Chicago, and that's why he was raised by his foster parents, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, and raised to be the way he is today, the way he was in the recent past, as being an advisor to Hugo Chavez, working in the Ninth Circuit, coming to San Francisco, never prosecuting a case, being a public defender, and then being voted into office by a dumbed-down voter base that put this man, who's a son of 4 communist terrorist murderers, in that position as San Francisco's top cop. That's ironic and it's disgusting.
Yep.
It is disgusting. And, you know, as I'm looking here, this district attorney Bowden, he has access to all the evidence from the Park Station bombing, which is also very scary. In 2009, if we remember correctly, the district attorney at the time was Kamala Harris. And on direction and direct message from Eric Holder, the attorney general for President Obama put an order out via Chief Heather Fong, who was then appointed Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security in 2015, that the San Francisco Police Department, if this is correct, is not supposed to speak about the bombing of Park Station. And the San Francisco Police Officers Association came out against the Weather Underground and supported the 2009 or supported the fact that Bernadine Dorn was the prime suspect in the bombing. There's a video that was aired on Hannity in 2009 with Cliff Kincaid from San Francisco, with Larry and Jimmy's dad from the same time. Trevor and the victims of the Weather Underground violence were speaking out about the open investigation. Retired radio talk show host Michael Savage also had Cliff on his show about this event in San Francisco the day before the conference. And Heather Fong wasn't competent enough to investigate a jaywalking violation and be put on the corner to pull security on a dead-end street. That's about how competent Fong is. Go ahead, Trevor.
Well, yeah, this is just typical, though, isn't it? As you said at the beginning, there's 2 standards of justice in this country. And if you're a Weather Underground terrorist, if you're on the left, you become a respected professor or a legal academic. You have access to the education system of this country and have huge influence on it. But if you go and take a couple of selfies in the Capitol building after a Trump rally, you're hounded and put into solitary confinement without trial, persecuted and mistreated. So it's very clear to see that the Weather Underground left really is a dominant feature in the American justice system today. And Chesa Boudin is just part of this. You know, his parents were terrorists. His grandfather was a leading member of the Communist Party USA. He's the third generation radical. And this is why San Francisco is now a dump, where there's just garbage all over the streets. There's needles, there's feces. It's just a disgusting mess, because this man believes that criminals are victims of society, and therefore they are part of the revolutionary mass, and they should not be put in jail. The landlords should be put in jail. The bosses should be put in jail. And so you are seeing a revolutionary running the legal system in San Francisco. Now, I'm sure Jimmy can comment. You know, imagine what it's like being a San Francisco policeman now. You know, you're out there. You cannot keep your people safe.
No.
You've got a revolutionary. You arrest somebody for shoplifting, your revolutionary district attorney's gonna let them out again. And it isn't just Boudin. You've got about 15 or 16 of these in Chicago, Larry Grathwohl in Philadelphia, which is turning these once wonderful cities into tips, into nightmares.
Just destroying them.
But this is the revolutionary process. This is not accidental or stupid.
No.
This is carrying on the revolution that Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dawn wanted to see happen in America, by destroying the capitalists, destroying the middle class, and empowering the criminal, empowering the radical, empowering the worst elements of society to become the dominant element.
It's time
you're
to
seeing
shut it
that
down.
playing out right in San Francisco today. Well, I'm sure you know lots of San Francisco cops, Jimmy.
Yes, I know a lot from the time my father was a police officer in the late 60s all the way up to now, where some of my friends are there now under siege. Last year there was the riots across the United States, and then I was down in Los Angeles, and there was a sheriff's office in Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood that was firebombed by Antifa and by BLM. Next night, the sheriff's office pulled over a vehicle where two young men with about 25 years old who probably couldn't hold a job at Circle K. When they went through the vehicle, they found different types of riot gear, things that they had in there, and also $70,000 in cold cash. Now these guys couldn't even make a minimum wage job work for a week. How are they going to get $70,000 in cold cash in a garbage bag? They're there. They're being funded. They're being funded by counterintelligence agencies. It's the same trickle down effect that goes to their sources, to their cells, to their cell leaders, and they dwindle it down to the what Yuri Bezmenov called back in the 80s the useful idiot that doesn't know any better, that wants to make a few dollars. Hey, go out and riot, and they're the ones that get cracked in the head by the nightstick, not
Right.
the ones that are facilitating the domestic insurgency that's happening right now, which is well thought out, and the communists have it down to a science, and they've done it all over the world since 1917.
Yeah, and by the way, real quick, I'm getting reverb. I'm getting bounce back off of one of you guys off your audio. If you can, take a look and see who it is. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Trevor Loudon, Jimmy Pera, and Lindsay Grathwohl. Be back in just a moment, Patriots. God bless you. Big news, America. Mike is bringing back the pillow offer for just $29.98. They're the softest pillows. They don't go flat. Wash them and dry them as many times as you like, and they still keep their shape. And they're made in America. Mike is offering his premium My Pillows at his lowest price ever. Queen size for $29.98, regularly $69.98. That's a $40 savings. And king size, only $5 more. Go to mypillow.com and enter the promo code Indivisible for my show, or call 1-800-716-4639 and give them the code Indivisible for my show, and you're going to get huge savings. We're back. Guys, I want to play a video real quick here that was on the Sean Hannity show a couple days ago, so the audience can take a look at this, and it kind of plays into what we're talking about.
More developments tonight on how parents and common sense Americans are pushing back against the destructive far-left critical race theory ideology that's infiltrating America's schools. Just listen to how one Virginia mom who actually survived now China eviscerates her local school board amid the district's critical race theory push. Take a look at this.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to lose our country and our history. Growing up in South China, all this seems very familiar. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our school.
And down in the great state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis continues to be a beacon of hope against this far-left lunacy as the Florida Board of Education has approved the governor's rule banning teaching of critical race theory in the state's public schools. Joining us now for reaction, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, along with the mother you just saw in that video, She Van Fleet, is with us. You were 6 years old when the Cultural Revolution began in China, and you have spoken eloquently about what it was like in school, and posters hung in hallways, and teachers and students would attack each other for being ideologically impure. Can you explain what you experienced and the similarities you see?
Okay, I just want to let the American people know that what's going on in our school and in our country is really a replay of the Cultural Revolution in China. And I want people to see there are similarities, and the similarities are terrifying. They use the same ideology and same methodology, even the same vocabulary, and with the same goal. The ideology is cultural Marxism, and we were divided into groups as oppressor and oppressed. And here we use race, and there they use class. And the people here who have a different review were labeled racist. But in the Cultural Revolution, the label is counter-revolutionary. So it is a hat that fits all. And once the hat is on your head, your life is ruined. And the methodology is also very similar. It's cancel culture. We basically cancel the whole Chinese civilization pre-communism. And we changed our school names, street names, store names. We changed even our personal names. My name is Xi, and I was named after the city I was born, Xi'an. Xi means west. It also refers to the imperialism. So I wanted so bad to change my name because I want to be more communist. I'm glad my parents convinced me not to. And the vocabulary is even the same, wokeness. And to be specific, we use class wokeness. In Chinese, it is 阶级觉悟. Your level of wokeness determine your chance to get a promotion or to get benefit. And who decides your level of wokeness? It is the party leaders.
Okay, I just wanted to show that real quick because I think it ties directly in to what we're talking about. Lindsay, I'm going to give you the first comment on that.
Well, it does. It absolutely ties in because once the Weather Underground decided to come out from being underground and come back into society, a lot of them went to our colleges and they became professors and teachers, and they've been indoctrinating our kids ever since. So this is something new. Like, I mean, the critical race theory obviously is a new thing, but this indoctrination is not a new thing. This has been going on for a long time in our country. I think it's more of a new thing in the low, like in grade school and high school. They're starting to push it more now, whereas it's mostly been in our universities.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm getting a huge bounce back on audio from somebody. Everybody can hear it. in our audience, and I'm getting comments about it. So somebody might have a device turned on. If you can, just check it real quick. But we're getting reverb. Jimmy, I wanted to go to you for a second, and I'm going to go back to Lindsay here in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about how this has affected your family. All of this nonsense leading up to where we are today, how it's affected your family with your father, with Lindsay's father. You know, the repercussions are real, and people don't realize that real lives are affected. And I want you to talk about that for a minute.
Well, being that, I am from a family of immigrants. My mother's from El Salvador. My father was a police officer for 30 years. He was a Vietnam vet. His side of the family is from the United States. All this cancel culture, garbage and propaganda is right out of the communist playbook. It goes way back to 1917. It goes through the 1930s. It goes into the 50s with the beatniks, into the hippie era. Their goal is to shut down free speech. And what they slipped into our society and within our schools and within our education system is what's hate speech and what's speech. Well, they can speak all the hate speech they want, but if you speak something that has to do with being patriotic, you want to serve your country, you want to be a police officer, you want to be a civil servant, you want to hang your flag outside, you want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and you want to stand for a national anthem at a San Francisco 49er game like the late Bob St. Clair would do, and not like that clown Colin Kaepernick, you're all of a sudden a racist, or you're all of a sudden something that is not what they want in society for people to hear. Now, with that, the Black Liberation Army and the Weather Underground, they are Marxist-Leninist organizations that are pro-war. They're not pro-peace. The anti-war movement, for a large part of it, wasn't at all anti-war. And for anybody out there that believes that there's peace in the world, that's a fallacy too, because all that is a refit, rest, and get ready for the next battle. They understand this. They're at war with us. They're at war with the United States. They're at war with the everyday American people. Jason Bodine is not just an enemy of the San Francisco Police Department and the people in the city and county of San Francisco. Him with his family's ties to the Cuban DGI and Eastern European intelligence agencies, include Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, the late dead dictator, now Maduro. They are the enemies of the United States of America. And their goal is to shut people down. And when they shut people down with BLM and these other propagandist organizations, that is one of their goals. And after that, like Yuri Bezmenov said in the 1980s, they're going to try to inflict generational indoctrination and ideological subversion. They're going to try to push the communist agenda which way they want through the useful idiot. And they're going to try to silence people that understand the truth. And they're going to do it via violence, or they're going to do it through pop culture. They're going to do it through now what they're trying to do in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, Nike. That's what they're trying to do, and they're doing it with the help of their Chinese masters in Beijing and even in Russia.
Yeah. Trevor, would you like to comment?
Yeah, well, it's a very clear line. You know, we know that, we talked about Susan Rosenberg, and she is now on the funding arm of Black Lives Matter. She is a Weather Underground terrorist in jail for 54 years for accessory to murder and possession of explosives. And Jerry Nadler, the current head of the Judiciary Committee, the committee in Congress that oversees the FBI and the Justice Department, got Bill Clinton to pardon her from jail. And now she serves on the funding arm of Black Lives Matter called Thousand Currents. Isn't Thousand Currents a very Maoist sounding type of organization?
Yes.
Because it is Maoist. Black Lives Matter is run by Asians for Black Lives, which is a front for the Chinese Progressive Association of San Francisco, which is run out of the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. Black Lives Matter is a Chinese operation, where the underground was a Chinese-Cuban operation. There's the Black Panthers were a Chinese-Cuban operation. There's a very clear line from those radicals of the 70s to the radicals of now. And their objective, as Jimmy says, is Marxist-Leninist, is to destroy America, to bring America to its knees so they can reestablish a new order. See, the lady talked about the Cultural Revolution. That was all about destroying the past, ripping down statues, destroying literature, abolishing past heroes. What have the communists been doing here? They're ripping down statues. They are destroying the founding fathers. They are altering American history because they want to make a new society, just like they tried to do in China. That's exactly a rerun. You know, the people ripping down statues in North Carolina of Confederate heroes are the same kinds of people who ripped down statues of Chinese heroes in Beijing in 1966. It's exactly the same Maoist playbook.
Lindsay, I want you to touch on how this has affected you and your family, with your father being the only one to infiltrate this band of scumbags.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I obviously I grew up learning about things that most of my friends and people that I was surrounded with had no idea about. Living, and I was born and raised here in Northern California, which is a pretty liberal, very liberal area.
I'll say
I've always been conservative, always, because that's how I was raised. You know, probably the biggest thing that my dad dealt with when he was alive was people would call him crazy and people would call him a racist. The racist thing, like I've been telling everybody, this isn't new. Just, you know, I mean, they threw that at my dad years ago. But the crazy, you know, they used to call him crazy. People thought, you know, that this is never going to happen. You know, you think that it's like, going after a bunch of communists. Where's the communists? You know, where are they? And like now we look at everything that's going on, and it's like my dad was. I wish he was alive because I'd love to hear him say, "I told you all so."
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't. It may have sounded crazy 20 and 30 years ago.
No.
Right on point as to where we are right now and what's happening in our society. I mean, that's probably the worst that we've got. I mean, since my father's died, I'm pretty active. Like I go out and organize rallies and stuff like that. So now I get death threats and those types of things, which my father also got when he was alive. But you know, the way I look at it is that if they're not threatening me, then I'm not doing it right. Because you know, if I'm being threatened, then that means that I'm doing it right because I'm getting under their skin and I'm telling the truth.
Yeah, and let me just say something here because I've just about had it with this racist crap. Okay,
me too.
And I've been talking about it for months on this show. But let's take a pause here, America, and let's say this: you want to call me a racist? I say, so what? So what? What are you going to do about it? Because number one, you can't prove I'm a racist. Number two, I'm not a racist. And number three, I don't care what you say. And that is the stance that Americans need to take from now on. Enough of this nonsense. I am not a racist. No one on this panel is a racist. Nobody that comes on this show is a racist. On Thursday, I've got Joe Collins, Kim Klasick, Gordon Chang coming on this show. If I was a racist, they wouldn't be on my show. Okay? And if you really want to get naughty about it, come and challenge me because you're going to get embarrassed when you find out how much I'm not a racist or anybody on this show. The American people have got to say enough of this nonsense. I've had it. Go ahead, Trevor.
The newest. See, even the left, they don't care about racism either. It's only a weapon. You know, there's nobody more racist than the communist Chinese, but they follow the communist Chinese like anything. The latest line of the left is this: if you're an anti-communist, that means you're a racist. because most of the communist countries like China, North Korea, and Cuba are run by people of color. So the only reason you could be anti-communist is because you hate people of color. It's just a distraction.
Nonsense.
Don't buy into it one iota. We're all Americans. We believe in the Constitution. That's what makes America great. Doesn't matter where you come from. It's what you believe that makes you an American. It's what you know in your heart and what you believe.
Look,
and they want to divide us by bringing race into it. Don't let them do it.
That's right. And here's what I'm saying to America. Okay, we're going to take a new stance on this thing. You come at me or anybody on this panel or anybody out there that's listening. If someone calls you a racist, so you look at them right in the face and say, what? What? What are you going to do? You're not going to do a damn thing. That's what. Because you can't prove I'm a racist, and I don't care what you have to say. So you know what you tell them? You look at them right in the eye and say, I don't care what you say. Get out of my way. Get out of my life. Get out of my eyesight. I don't want to hear you. Go away. And if they want to get in your face and they want to start something physical, then you deal with it. But I'm telling you right now, enough of this nonsense. I've had it.
Yeah, look, the left has power over us because we buy into their arguments. They say, well, you're a racist because you supported President Trump, and you spend all your time justifying why you're not a racist. Say, look, it's a garbage argument. It's nothing to do with it. You don't even believe your own argument. You're a communist. You want to cause trouble. That's all it is.
That's right.
So don't buy into this. Don't spend your time justifying stuff. Just, they lie about us. All we have to do, they call us right-wingers and extremists and racists and Nazis, and we call them liberals and progressives. Well, let's stop. They lie about us. Let's just tell the truth about them. They are totalitarians. They are communists. They want to destroy this country. They're in the grip of evil. We just have to tell the truth about them and ignore their lies about us. Just go after them.
They're the true fascists.
Right.
Fascists, communists are mirror image ideologies of socialism. Now,
that's right.
If you go back to 1970s, the attack on the police officers back then going from New York to San Francisco, they want to talk about racism. Well, there was an assassination of two New York police officers by the name of Waverly Jones and Joseph Piagentini at the Polo Grounds in Harlem, where the New York Giants turned San Francisco Giants used to play. They shot them execution style and took their weapons and came out to San Francisco. In the same year, in 1971, at a stoplight, Sergeant George Kowalski was waiting for the light to turn green. Two BLA would-be assassins pulled up alongside of him. The name of the assassin would-be assassin was named Herman Bell. They pulled out a .45 caliber grease gun, pulled the trigger, and it jammed. And it was a cross-town gunfight. And when it ended at the Great Highway, my father responded to it as well. They found on these BLA assassins, would-be assassins, the New York police officer's police revolver that was taken from the two officers killed in New York. Now, they want to talk about racism. They're the racists because what the Black Liberation Army did and what the Weather Underground did was target black and white police officers that were partners. They purposely assassinated black officers that were partners with white officers.
Right.
It happened in New York. It happened numerous times in New York City. They came out to San Francisco. They did it. They tried to do it there. A couple nights after the attempted assassination of George Kowalski, they attacked Ingleside Station and killed Sergeant John Jack V. Young and shot a secretary that was there that put out a 406 for help because it was a joint Black Liberation Army Weather Underground hit on Ingleside to kill, which they did a man, by the way, who was such a good man, he should have been a priest. On Thanksgivings, he would go to the Hannah Boyce Center in Sonoma, California for troubled youth, and him and his wife, who didn't have children, would bring them to their home and cook them Thanksgiving dinner and take them to Easter get-togethers and all sorts of events to help these youth that were troubled. He was also a philanthropist. he was one of the first officers of San Francisco to donate to the United Negro College Fund and the NAACP. They assassinated him in cold blood. And the last words he said when the secretary heard him say was, "Help me." And this was one of the nicest men my dad said ever served in uniform in San Francisco. Nina, the secretary, is a hero. She called out a 406 for help, and it saved it from becoming a worse incident than it was. And these animals are still on the street. And I'm going to tell you what, the names of those dirtbags that hit Ingleside Station were Anthony Bottoms and Albert Washington, which, by the way, one of them went to prison in New York and out there was let out early from prison when he had a life sentence. And now he's out free, and he helped assassinate police officers, and he's living free just like Kathy Bodine, another cop-killing communist.
Yeah, and look, this is the other thing that Americans don't understand. They see the fake news media promoting this garbage, and they think because the media, like CNN or MSNBC or the New York Times, because they talk about it, it must be overwhelming numbers. That's nonsense. That is total garbage. This is a small amount of people that are causing all this damage. And I want to go further. I want to say this because this is very important. And I have a lot of people in my life, black, white, Hispanic, Indian, it doesn't matter. I know, and the black people that know me, they know who I am. And these people don't want to get embarrassed on national TV when I bring out and embarrass them when they call me a racist, because I'm going to tell you, I will embarrass them. When I show them my cards, I'm going to shut them up. So here's the deal. These idiots who are pure evil and want the destruction of this country, they say that black people can't be racist. Guess what, America? Yes, they can. You turn on your TV, who are the old white men and the white women being attacked by black thugs? Who are the Asians being attacked by? Black thugs. These are black racists, just like Antifa, white racists. This is the revolution. There is no skin color on their side. It's only directed at you if they want to hurt you, cancel you, take you out because you don't agree with them. And that's what this is about. Go ahead, Trevor.
Well, the left attacked a very well-known presidential candidate. They called him a racist endlessly, over and over again. They called him a warmonger. That was Barry Goldwater in 1964. Is this familiar, people? This has been happening since then. This is interesting. The people who ran the smear campaign against Barry Goldwater were a couple of Communist Party members, Soviet agents from Chicago, Leroy Wolins and Simon Cantor. They went on to train a man called David Axelrod. David Axelrod was the campaign manager for Barack Obama, who won his elections by smearing his opponents as racists. This whole thing is a communist program that has been going since the 1950s to smear Republicans, patriots, conservatives, constitutionalists as racists. It's complete garbage, considering it was the Republican Party that freed the slaves and the Republican Party that passed the Civil Rights Act. But that doesn't matter if you're on the left, because you control a narrative. You can say any lie you like, and you know your friends in the media won't do anything to counteract it. So the point I'm getting at, this has been going on a long time. America has been the target of communist revolutionaries for 100 years now. What we're seeing is nothing new. This is just the crest of the wave. This wave has been building for 100 years. We're at the crest, and their choice is ours. Do we push it back, or do we allow it to overwhelm us and destroy us? Because that's where we are right now, and we cannot buy into their lies. We are This is the freest, richest, most benevolent country the world has ever known. And everybody who lives here should be so proud of that fact and accept none of this garbage that's being thrust at us. Stand for America. America is the best country in the world.
Yeah, and this guy right here set us back 50 years. He is one of the biggest race baiters, one of the biggest racists, one of the biggest scumbags on the face of the earth. He should be arrested for treason, high treason. If the American public knew the investigations that I have on him and Biden, you would not believe how corrupt these criminals are. They stole trillions of dollars from the American people. They are scum. They are traitors to the United States, and they are liars. And yes, they are racist. Yes, they are. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Lindsay Grathwohl. I want to hear what Lindsay has to say. By now, you've all heard me talk about Mike and his great products. Well, guess what? Mike's now introduced his MyPillow My Slippers, which are fantastic. Great on my feet, soft as can be. I love them. Mike's taken over 2 years to develop these slippers. He's designed them to wear indoor or outdoor all day, all night long. Made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue. Made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slippers. The My Slippers are so comfortable, you're going to want to get them for the whole family. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code Indivisible. You'll also get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, and MyPillow towel sets. Or call 1-800-716-4639 and enter Indivisible as your promo code. Fantastic products from MyPillow and my friend Mike Lindell. Lindsay, I want to go straight to you. Your response to what we were just talking about, because it just burns me.
Well, as far as the whole racist thing goes, like I've always been, especially in the recent years, I've always been like, my actions should speak louder than any words. And I refuse to go round and round with people. I've had Antifa who've actually made written articles about me and photoshopped my picture in with real
I've seen them.
racists. And, you know, it's obviously a photoshopped photo. And if anybody wants to believe that, then that's on them. That's how I feel about the whole racist thing.
Yeah.
As far as these people and what's happening in our country and how, the tactics that they're using. I mean, one of the things I think is so important for all of us, and I have 2 children, and I'm homeschooling both of my children at this point because I don't want them to be infected with the Marxist teachings of.
God bless you. God bless you, Lindsay.
And it's not just in the public school. I want people to understand that it's also happening in private school. My son's in a Catholic school, and it started happening there. And so I just decided that I'm not going to have that. My children are not going to be indoctrinated or brainwashed by these people. I'm not.
And Lindsay, you're one of millions of parents out there that are doing just that. They're pulling their kids from school because they're finding out that their kids are learning this critical race theory and 1619 Project nonsense, and they're not going to do it.
Right.
So I applaud you for doing it.
And more people need to do it. The only way we're going to fight back against this, besides the obvious of, standing up and doing these, there's so many different fronts that we need to fight on, with the election audits and all these different things going on. But our children are the future. They're the ones that are going to inherit this when we're all gone. And if we have, a bunch of communists, kids that are raised to, Marxist communists, then, our country is going to fall for sure. And so I think it's really important for parents to be very, very knowledgeable, know what your kids are learning. And if you're not okay with it, then pull them out. I know it's hard. It's hard. I work full time but I still homeschool my children because to me that's most important. That's one of the biggest forefronts of this fight is to make sure that our children are educated, correctly, because they're getting rid of, Trevor talked about it earlier. They're tearing down our statues. They're burning, they're getting rid of Dr. Seuss, it's
Charlie Brown. It doesn't matter. They've ruined Disney.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I will not allow my children to grow up in that kind of craziness. I won't.
Good for you.
I refuse. Yeah. So
do you want to make real quick, Lindsay, do you want to make a comment about this San Francisco DA Chase Loudon? This scumbag, he's just continuing the legacy of Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground and Thousand Currents. What is this guy? Can we get rid of him?
Well, we're working on it. There's a recall effort here in people are saying that California has recall fever, and I would have to agree. We're in the process of recalling Gavin Newsom, Chase Boudin, and George Cascone, which is the district attorney down in Los Angeles.
Right, he's another scumbag.
He used to be district attorney up here. They're just kind of replacing these people all over the place. I was shocked and appalled when I found out that Chase Boudin was running for district attorney. I did everything that I could to get, the word out. It didn't work. I'm hoping that this recall effort is successful because my own personal belief is that this is not where Chase Boudin is going to stop.
I have a quick question for you, Lindsay, because this is important. On the ground, in the communities, whether it be Napa Valley, Sonoma County, San Francisco, wherever in Northern California there, what do the people in the neighborhood say? Do they want crime to run amok and just take over their neighborhoods? Are they okay with that?
No, I don't know anybody that is okay with the crime and okay with what's happening.
But they understand the correlation between who's in office and what the result is.
I don't know. I don't know if everybody, I know the people that I associate with know, but these other people, I don't know if they understand that it's the policy, these progressive policies that are what's doing all this. I don't think that everyone understands. They think that people like Chase Boudin are progressive and that, people on the left are just good people, right? That's what they portray, is that everyone on the left is good. They want to help people. They're humanitarians, all this stuff. And the people on the right, the conservatives, are racist, Nazi, pieces of crap. That's really what people think when they think of, people are shocked when they find out that I'm a conservative because I don't look like one. And, and then of course where I'm from, but,
so let me get this straight. So the people out there, they just buy whatever the media tells them.
I'd say a lot of them do. Yeah. That's how I see it.
We need if that's the case, then we need to start a campaign that fights that specifically, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you are that dumb to just believe whatever they tell you, then you are a fool and you deserve what you get.
But I do want to say this. More and more people on both sides are waking up here in Northern California. A lot of people that I think even possibly voted for Chase Boudin are now part of the recall effort because they realize that, we made a big mistake. This guy is not what we wanted in office. So, it's been really interesting here in California because I'm really active in the, the recalls and the politics here. And I've seen a lot of moderates and a lot of people that are on the left that are starting to come over to our side, with the whole COVID and the vaccinations, because Gavin wants to have to show that passport crap. And then also with all these socialist policies. So I think people are slowly, because they're starting to see it's affecting them. Nobody cares until it affects them.
Until it hits their front door, and then it's too late. Here's a tip, California. Why don't you get off your lazy butt and do some research on candidates before you vote? Okay? Don't take CNN's word for it, or, what's the idiot that hosts the late night show on CBS? You guys, you get your news from The View. You get your news from the New York Times, that rag. You want to believe these people, and then you're going to live your life based on what they tell you? Grow up and do some research, because you're being lied to. You're being led down a path of destruction. You're destroying yourselves. Wake up. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, well, that's pretty hard to top your passion there, John. Yeah, look, you're right. We're living in a world that's insane right now. You know, right is wrong, wrong is right, truth is lies, lies is truth. This is what Orwell was telling us about in 1984. And we're at a point now where we can't sit on the sidelines any longer.
No.
You're going to be on one side or another. You're going to be on the side of good and freedom. We're going to be the side of evil and socialism. That's where we're at. So make a choice, people, because you're going to have to face your kids. You're going to have to face your maker one day, and you're going to have to explain why you chose to do what you did, or why you chose to not do what you should have done.
And it's
That's
at your
where
front
we're
door,
at right
people.
now.
It's at your front door now.
And
right,
if
Trevor?
you can't ignore it any longer. So this is a moral choice everybody's got to make. This is as vital as World War II or the Revolution or any of the other great crises of American or world history. You're on the side of right and good now and freedom, or you're part of the problem. What are you going to be?
Yes, and Jimmy, I want to go to you. I want to talk about Ryan O'Hara, Army Green Beret, who's suffering from war wounds and post-traumatic stress disorder. Can you talk about him briefly?
Yes, this was a book that was authored by my father, and it's about a fiction based on truth novel about a Green Beret who returns from war with PTSD and a slight alcohol problem, and he goes across the country hunting Marxist-Leninist revolutionaries from the 1960s and 70s that murdered his grandfather, and he serves them his own personal justice in between deployments before he goes back to Afghanistan. And he's a member of the 5th Special Forces Group, but he's from San Francisco. And when his grandfather was murdered, it destroyed his family. So my father, being a police officer and being a veteran and understanding the world of special forces, wrote this book, penned it, and it's a reflection of today's society through a kind of a vigilante point of view.
Well, look, we want to honor, and this whole show today was in honor of your father, Jimmy, your father, Lindsay, Ryan O'Hara, Sargent McDonnell, all of those that have paid the price for running up against these thugs who want to destroy our country. This show today is in honor of them because they were out there. They put it all on the line. You know, like I said, Lindsay, your father infiltrated these scumbags. I mean, to be able to do that, your father, I would have loved to have been able to sit down with him and talk with him and had a cup of coffee. And I can't do that because these scumbags killed him. They murdered him. And it's unacceptable. So, look, I want to thank you. Thank you both, Jimmy, Lindsay, for coming on the show and for pouring out your hearts, for telling the truth, for making the American people aware of exactly what's going on. And just, we got to get the truth out there, because if we don't, we're finished. And that's it. And that's all. And people need to wake up to that fact, because it is at your doorstep. Thank you both. And I'm going to hide you for a few minutes here, but I'll come back and see you after the show. Trevor, I want to go to you. And this has been we fit a lot of information into this show today. I want you to tie this all together, for the American people to, look, we've stressed how important this is. We've stressed why this matters. I want you to tie this together with your vast knowledge of this subject and my brother that I turn to. Let the American people know once again what's at stake here.
Well, for 100 years, the communists have been infiltrating American society because they knew that the world communism could only exist if there was no America. America was the number one problem. So they went through the 30s. In the 20s, they almost had a communist revolution here. They built up in the 30s. They took over Roosevelt's government in the 40s. They were big in the 60s, in the Vietnam War era. The Weather Underground terrorist movement came along, working for China, working for Cuba, infiltrating every aspect of society. We thought it was all over in the 80s. We thought that Reagan had defeated the Soviet Union. It was all a mistake. Yes, he pushed them back. Yes, he might force them into a retreat. But what do you do if you have cancer in your body and you cut 90% of the tumor out, then you stop all treatment? In a few years, your body is going to be riddled. Now, America is riddled with communism because we stopped all opposition to it when we thought Reagan had defeated it. Now it controls the Democratic Party. Now it controls Black Lives Matter, your children's schools, your churches. It controls virtually every aspect of our society. We've got a few months, maybe a year or two, maybe, to turn this around, to push it back and to destroy this menace. If we don't, this is our last shot in America, and our children, our children, not just our children, we will spend the rest of our short, brutal, nasty lives in slavery. So now is the time. We are in a revolution. Face reality. Get involved in pushing it back, because if we don't, we're done.
That's right. That's right. And Trevor, God bless you, brother, for coming on the show. And look, as you know, we keep pounding this, and we're going to keep pounding it. And I'll do it as many times as we have to for the American people to wake up. And I just wanted to thank you, because your vast knowledge on this subject. I mean, I always look to you as my brother when covering this. And I just wanted to also say, before we go, I was so upset. I misspoke. Lindsay's father was not murdered. He died unexpectedly in 2013 after his book tour. But I'm so upset because there's so many that have been murdered. And we were talking about McDonnell, and we mentioned O'Hara. We talked about Jimmy's father being first on the scene, and the bombings and the murders and the disinformation and the lies and the racism actually coming from them, and just using our media, manipulating our media to fool everyone that's stupid enough just to believe it. It blows your mind. And I couldn't have done it without you, brother. And God bless you.
Well, thanks very much, John. And I love your passion. I love your commitment to America and liberty. And I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to more Americans about these subjects.
Yes, sir. And we'll keep at it. We'll keep at it as long as we have to, brother. Talk to you soon.
Right. Okay, sir. Thanks very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day, Trevor. Look, folks, a very passionate subject. I get upset when talking about this, because everybody out there that knows me, and I know a lot of people, they know that I'm not racist. And they know that the people I deal with aren't racist. And they're black, white, Indian, Mexican, doesn't matter, Chinese, Japanese. I have people from all walks of life that are a part of my life. And no one that associates with me as a racist. It just isn't. So they can talk about it all they want. They can scream it till the cows come home. I'll get up in their face and deny it, and I'll show them the proof. And to be honest with you, I challenge any of them to bring me into a national forum, because what I will do is just embarrass them on national television. They don't want that. By the way, Officer Richard Radijich, he died 61 years ago, killed by the BLA. And 51 years ago. So just wanted to add that note. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for a special deep dive on the Weather Underground, on Thousand Currents. We just we spent a lot of time putting this show together, because there's so much information, and we don't want to We don't want to deprive you of anything, and I'm sure we couldn't get to everything, but if we have to come back and do it again, we will. God bless you, America. Thank you.